Imagine a pastor, quiet, reserved, almost understated. No theatrics, no soaring crescendos, his voice steady, his words careful. He often read from a manuscript. Yet his life of prayer carved deep grooves in the souls of his people. He could spend 12, even 13 hours in study and intercession, slipping into the woods to lie face down on the earth, crying out to God for hours. The sermon that shook a nation, the spark that helped ignite the First Great Awakening, was birthed out of 3 days of fasting and prayer. And on a morning in 1741, something no stagecraft could manufacture happened. There was no shouting, no music, no clever production. Jonathan Edwards read his sermon, and heaven opened. People began to weep, to cry out, to collapse under conviction, as if they stood at the lip of hell. It wasn't hysteria, it was holy clarity. From one message, sinners in the hands of an angry God, God used a Puritan pastor to rouse an entire people. Churches swelled, crowds were converted. What began in a small town became a defining moment of the First Great Awakening. How did it happen? What did he preach? Stay with me to the end. And if you still believe God can do it again, type in the comments. Revive us, Lord. To grasp this moment, we have to step back. Early 18th century New England, founded by Puritans only a few generations earlier, was quietly starving spiritually. Sanctuaries were full, but hearts were thin. The blazing devotion of the first settlers had cooled. Prosperity rose, learning expanded, but spiritual life dulled. What began as a burning love for God slowly settled into habit and social custom. Families attended services because that's what one did. Pulpits held orthodox sermons, accurate but airless. The spirit felt distant. Orthodoxy remained, but it was orthodoxy without oxygen. Leaders guarded reputation and routine more than repentance and renewal. Preaching turned predictable. Sacraments felt like empty motions. Few true conversions. Young people grew up in church, never knowing new birth. The region slept, a comfortable religion, hollow at the core. No one imagined that, in the middle of this chill, God would raise a shy, introspective pastor to light a generation. Jonathan Edwards was born October 5, 1703, in East Windsor, Connecticut, into a home saturated with faith and learning. His father, Timothy, was a minister. His grandfather, Solomon Stoddard, a renowned pastor in Massachusetts. From childhood, Edwards' mind and soul ran hot. Latin at 6, Latin, Greek, Hebrew by 12. By 13, he had devoured theology and philosophy and soon entered Yale. At 19, he penned 70 resolutions, searching, disciplined commitments, self-examination, humility, zeal, love. Resolved, he wrote, to do whatsoever I think to be most to God's glory. After brief posts in New York and at Yale, he joined Stoddard in Northampton in 1726, and by 1729, took the pastorate. Edwards prepared like a man who expected God. Hours of meditation, reading, and prayer. He was not charismatic in today's sense, yet his piercing mind, sincerity, and reverence made him one of history's great revival preachers. Not because he stirred emotions, but because God breathed on truth he preached. He wasn't the first wave of awakening. Theodore Frelinghuysen, among the Dutch Reformed, and Gilbert Tennant among Presbyterians, had already seen stirrings. But New England's crest rose under Edwards, and later thundered as George Whitefield traversed the colonies. The movement's early embers glowed around 1730 and brightened in 1734, especially in Northampton, where Edwards proclaimed justification by faith alone. Young people were cut to the heart. Prayer meetings lengthened. Tears, confessions, reconciled marriages, broken habits, signs of genuine change multiplied. Edwards rejoiced, but he also anchored the awakening with doctrine, building a church that wouldn't confuse heat for light or a momentary spark for lasting fire. Then came Enfield, Connecticut, July 8, 1741. Edwards entered the pulpit having fasted and prayed for 3 days, soaking in Scripture's testimony to God's holiness, human sin, and the urgency of repentance. His dependence was deliberate. If transformation came, it would be the Spirit's work, not the preacher's skill. His text, Deuteronomy 32:35, "In due time their foot will slip." He portrayed humanity hanging by a slender thread over the flames of judgment, suspended only by God's sovereign mercy, mercy that delays but does not cancel justice. Reject that mercy and you stand at the brink. As he read, the room shifted. Conviction fell like weight. Some clutched pews and pillars as if the floor itself had tilted toward the abyss. The sobs rose, pleas for mercy spilling out the doors. Witnesses said the cries carried far down the road. Before Edwards reached the consolation of Christ, he had to pause. The anguish was overwhelming. He prayed with people, urged them to flee to Christ. That day became a tipping point. Reports of conversions and renewed churches multiplied. Whitefield's outdoor preaching to tens of thousands amplified the wave. A cold, ceremonial religion warmed to the living God. Not everyone approved. Critics decried excess, authorities worried about instability. But the fruits were undeniable. Thousands saved, spiritual life renewed, and American Christianity permanently marked. They would call it the First Great Awakening because more revivals would follow. Edwards never chased fame, yet his fidelity made him one of America's most influential theologians. He wrote deeply: Religious Affections, The Life of David Brainerd, Freedom of the Will, Braiding Reason and Affection, Doctrine and Devotion. In 1758, he was appointed president of what is now Princeton, but died shortly after from complications related to inoculation. His legacy endured, shaping pastors like Spurgeon and Lloyd Jones, and impressing even secular thinkers with his brilliance. But his greatest gift wasn't a book or a role. It was the spiritual hunger he helped awaken, and the reminder that God delights to use ordinary, faithful people to stir entire nations. Which leads to the question that won't let go. Why not again? The God who set hearts ablaze in colonial America has not changed. He is still holy. He still saves. He still seeks worshipers in spirit and truth. What if there's a generation willing to seek him, willing to fast, preach truth, live holy, and pray until love grows warm again? Maybe we won't see a wooden church packed with trembling crowds. Maybe we'll see schools touched, families restored, congregations revived in prayer. Revival isn't a formula. It's God's answer to contrite hearts. Edwards' sermon doesn't flatter us. It confronts us, calls us, shakes us, then invites us to surrender. Whether you're a pastor, a new believer, a weary leader, or someone standing at the edge, God can begin something new in you. Be faithful, and perhaps a century from now, someone will tell the story of how the fire fell again, starting with one willing heart. If this stirred you, share it and drop "Revive Us, Lord" in the comments. There is nothing more powerful than an ordinary person in the hands of a holy God.